Hallo, schön, dass ihr alle da seid.
Hi, thank you all for being here. Yeah, so it's still a lot of emotion in the room.
Den allerletzten Tag genutzt.
So, who of you used the last day where it's possible to opt out of the usage of your personal data by the Meta AI? Yeah, so quite a few screens going up. I did that too, and some of you probably did this quite a few weeks ago, and I think that's a good example of AI, sort of step-by-step encroaching into our private lives. And I think most of the time we don't really know that, right? If you don't know about this deadline of Meta's usage of your personal data for AI, then you don't even know about this. You can't feel it. And so in various industries and various fields, of course, AI is a major topic. And so I've just visited various journalism conferences, and I think the gist is we don't know. We don't know what to expect. Some people say, all of those dinos, all these old organizations, they're going to have this extinction level event in the near future, and they're just going to be gone. But it also might be the case that we get lots of new chances. And that's what I want to talk about with you today, because we don't know what AI means for our profession. So journalists, they're quite busy at the moment to introduce AI, to understand AI, and to see what are the chances for us as journalists. And there's quite a few interesting projects being started at the moment. And a few years ago, I was tasked with the topic of innovation at Deutsche Welle. And I think it's quite interesting to think about all of that. But at some point, I got the feeling that's not enough. It's not enough to see the future of journalism only in technological progress. We have to do more. We have to get back to dealing with the people that we work for, the people for whom we create journalistic products. So journalism, in my point of view, is a service, right? And it's a service within our diverse democracy that we really, really should keep and safeguard in these times and prevent this extinction level event. And it's not just about looking at new technologies, platforms, processes, all of that stuff that has come about with digitalization. The question is, how do we achieve that journalism remains in the future for a lot of people in our society? How does it stay relevant? How do people perceive it as helpful? And how do they perceive it as necessary? And so where can the surplus come from that journalism creates? And so today I want to present 3 ideas to you, 3 survival strategies for journalism in the situation where we're not quite sure what we're actually facing in the future. And so the first idea is we need a clear understanding of people's needs, of the needs of the people whom we work for. And I don't mean this, categorization of user needs. That's what happens at the moment. And I mean, it's, a good first try, but really user needs, when we talk about that, it tries to have these categories of human needs so we can work with them. But it's not It's not this idea that in our society we have so many different people, so many various types of people, and all of those people, they have much, much more than those 7 user needs. And so I'm going to give you some examples so you can understand what I'm getting at. About a third of our population is young, less than 30 years old. And so the question is, what does journalism do for these people? What are the information offerings that we present to them, to this target group? What is with this huge, huge, huge majority of people in our society that think that the climate crisis is a serious problem? What do we offer to them? Where do they feel they're being taken seriously? Where do they feel they learn something? Where do they feel they benefit from our journalistic products? And around 30% of our society have a history of immigration within their family. And that leads to special perspectives, special interests for information. And so where are the journalistic offerings that target these 30% specifically? And quite simple, but 50% of us live in families. 50% don't live in families. The topic of family. Where are the journalistic offerings for the people who live within a family context? And 1 out of 7 people has problems reading texts. And so what do we do about that? Where are the journalistic offerings that are targeting specifically people who have a hard time reading texts? How can we enable them to stay a part of our social discussions and of ongoing debates? Or another example, the people from Eastern Germany that have 20% of the society. And we could also talk about queer people, people in rural areas. And so what I'm getting at is you can't just, have target audiences or so-called personas. You have to look at individuals and at their individual needs.
And that's what it looks like then. It's a lot of different people. And journalism has to be a service for them. And I have practical examples as well. One is from the German magazine Stern, and they made it a task for them to reach mothers. And just consider how many, specifically targeting mothers, how many journalistic formats do you know? How many mothers might there be in our society? Might they be interested in information? That's not just expert comments or scientific ideas. And in this magazine, in this video series, they get information about the sometimes very challenging lives of mothers, not commented by experts or scientists, but commented on by mothers. And it's successful. It's the most successful video series since their relaunch last year. And what's unexpected for video series, it's also well monetized. So we can learn from this. And what can we learn? Every person wants to be seen and to be heard. And we as journalists have, even more than in the past, right now we have the task to enable that. And it's not just people being whiny. No, it's our societal responsibility, and people have different needs. And in a digitized world, we can address those needs better than in the past. The second strategy, to provide hope and solutions. Recently, I was as a guest in an editorial meeting, and one of the editors looked at me and said, "Sorry, but world sucks." And it's not only since Hans Rosling that we know that journalists have a very negative worldview, and obviously they still project that into their audience. These are a few cutouts, and it's easier to show print, but the websites are the same basically. This is everything about climate. It's scary, and we can see that by now. More and more people tell us, in feedback of papers and talks that I have myself, well, it's too much. I can't do this anymore. All of us live in a world that's really challenging, that's become really challenging. You can't discuss this away. We have a crisis of the basis of all our lives, the climate crisis. We have a war in our immediate neighborhood. We have terrible killing in the Middle East, in Israel, in the Gaza area. We have a lot of happenings, and the list is certainly almost endless. And there's always people who work on improving the situation. There are small improvements. There are small solutions. And the task of those making media, of the creators, is to show the reality as good as possible, as well as possible, to not only show the problems, but also the good that's there. So to show both. And it's really important also for the usage of media, because the people can just click away. They can turn it off. They can pull out. They can get alternative information somewhere where the truths might be easier. So as a fourth column of democracy, it's our job that that doesn't happen. And of course, the media corporations want, or the media people want engagement. And speaking of that, never was the burnout risk higher than today. 39% of media creators have a high burnout risk. And one editor just told me, honestly, I cannot stand what we create here. And journalists, they also belong to the news avoiders we often talk about. Those people that say, I have to turn it off, I just can't anymore. And of course, that's a really alarming situation if the people who work on a product cannot stand what they are producing. That means that journalism has an effect. And I don't know if we thought about that enough in the past. You cannot have no effect. But on the other hand, it means that we have to decide what should the effect be? What do we want? And that's a privilege. Right now, almost 70% of people living here say, well, sometimes I have to turn it off. It's just too much. It's too negative. That's one of the main reasons why people avoid news. Not even mentioning the people who say, well, I don't believe that journalism is meant for me, because that what interests me is never mentioned, and people like me are never mentioned. And maybe about me, but not from my view, my point of view, and not in a voice that I would understand, not using language I would understand. So in addition to news avoiders, we have news outsiders, and I can tell you, it's no small group. And honestly, I think it's really obvious that especially younger people expect from media creators that they help them. So why would I give someone my attention if they don't help me with troubles and problems I have? And why would I pay for someone to just tell me my problems every day, but never do anything about solutions? So especially when looking at younger target groups, we have to achieve a better goal orientation and solution orientation. We also know from various studies by now that unfortunately never really caught on in journalistic circles that journalism can help with trust. And if it's solution-oriented, people interact longer with it. And we also know that people who, for example, read solution stories connected to the climate crisis, they at least have the feeling that something can be done. Well, they might not believe that everyone's helping, but at least they get a feeling that they think that it might be possible. We can do something, and that's really important because that's the opposite of the phenomenon of the learned helplessness, where you learn more and more that there is trouble and nobody does anything. There's problems and I can't do anything. And then you sink into learned helplessness deeper and deeper, and that's fatal. So a society that fell into learned helplessness, then nobody thinks they can solve any problems. I just said that solution-oriented journalism, it helps with trust. And that's not just nice to have. Trust is the basis of any economic decision, of any time I buy something. Also, the decision to pay for news. Trust is necessary. And trust is not earned by clickbaiting or by reach generated using tricks. Trust is generated by generating value. And value is generated by providing solutions. And I brought a few examples for that. Sometimes it's already happening. It's not like these ideas are completely new or unheard of in the news. More and more editorials are on the way of change and try to work more or provide more solution-oriented news. There's this example of young people in Switzerland who get time in their pension fund if they take care of older people. Or this story about violence against women and what we could learn from Spain in this context. And here, Tagesschau, one of the biggest German state news outlets, it would be possible. So this is an example of what could be. So this is an example. Those are examples of solution-oriented journalism. And what's important for me is, of course, it's about problems. It's not greenwashing. It's not pretending. It's about solutions to those real problems that everyone has. And that can reach an audience as well, a big audience. It's not like this does not reach an audience. And we reach people who turned off before. So we reach more people. And that's also important for media organizations. And as I mentioned earlier, the psychology behind this is one that strengthens our democracy because people have a feeling that, okay, we could do something. Things are improving. Okay, the third recipe that I think could work well in that phase that we are in currently. And honestly, it's something that all of you thought before. I know it. I know it from all the discussions I've had. People want that we can listen to each other again. And we are as connected as never before. But more people are lonely than ever before. A society where the felt polarization is increasing, but studies don't show it. We are not actually that polarized. Let's look at the numbers. A technical university, Dortmund, did a study where they found that people wish that 73% want that journalism helps the interconnectedness of society. That's a lot of people.
Ich finde das auch gerechtfertigt, ehrlicherweise.
And that people help each other. And I think that's really a good idea. And the point is, we call ourselves the fourth column of democracy. What does a column do? It's not just in the corner and points fingers at everything that's going wrong, but a column, it provides something, or doesn't it? So at a point where our democracy is not feeling too well, now would be the time for journalism to also provide something. Unfortunately, the same people who were asked in this study, they don't believe that journalists see it as their job to also provide something. So there's a great discrepancy of what people want from us and what they think that we want to do. And I think we have to get rid of this discrepancy. And that's why it's the time that we look at this guy again, Rudolf Augstein, to say what is. So it began after the Second World War as a response to the fascism. So it's journalism that really hurts, that tells what's going wrong, to say what is. The trouble is, our society changed a lot. It's really complex. It's digital. We have a simultaneousness of information, and journalists are no longer filtering and telling us what's important. So we have to evolve too. Yeah, it's still important to put the finger where it hurts, to investigate. It's important as never before. But we also need to be humble. We need to listen for what is and try to really understand what is. I'm a trained mediator, and there is really different techniques of questioning than I learned as a journalist and as are taught to journalists. Yes, sometimes hard questions are important. Sometimes putting pressure on someone can really help. But what about normal people we talk to who are really stressed out? Wouldn't it be better to learn techniques that target real understanding, that target solution orientation, that not just focus on who did something wrong, who's at fault, but who has the power to change something? How would the situation be better for you? Those are solution-oriented techniques that could be used from mediation or psychology or solution-oriented therapy. It targets learning more than just who broke it, whose fault is it. And that's why I would wish that we enter a phase where on the one side technologies are getting stronger and stronger and gain more and more influence, but we can also have something against it. And that's the human side, the human really listening. And journalists are the ones who can do that. And I feel like that's a really big privilege, but also a big responsibility. We need, in the face of our interconnected society, we need real understanding. It's more than just asking who broke something. And we need techniques like active listening to really make sure that we are really understanding. And that's because we are really, we have a lot of hubris that we already know what's going on. And there is editorials where they are already, before the interview, deciding what the scope will be. And that costs us trust. And we have to reflect what's actually coloring my view on the world. What caused me to see the world as I see it? And of course, I am assuming that I see it correctly. But there is no such thing as objectivity. Everyone here has a different point of view from me, and it belongs to a new journalistic humbleness to accept that. So we have our point of view, and others might be right too, but they have a different point of view.
And I just mentioned it. It's not just about this feeling of polarization. It's also in this totally connected society about loneliness and about the potential that journalism has for society and for itself. So I think it's really possible to have this win-win situation in the end. A journalism that's good for people and that's also valuable for the media organizations. So this is an example from Canada, the Green Line, based in Toronto. And it's a small, profitable media outlet, and they do very, very little content. They always start with a problem, then bring people together, talk about the problem, various perspectives on the problem, and find out what people think might be possible solutions for the problem. And then the journalists go out and research those solutions. And so in the end, you have a big mass of information, and the audience knows, well, this information is really, meant for me. This is in order to solve the problems that I'm currently facing. And that works. And a friend of mine in Warsaw founded a club under the media outlet Outriders. And yeah, so all of these young people that you can see there that we want to have in journalism, they participate in offline events, which you might have heard, right? Young people, they really like to participate in offline events, for example, for knitting. But yeah, there's also offline events for journalism, and it really works well. And this is in Berlin, where Die Zeit just opened a cafe. And yeah, I think Die Zeit is quite well known for, joining new trends quite early. And so I think, yeah, it's really possible to look at journalism as a third space, as a space where you gather to get valuable information, where you can have discussions, and maybe we can even have the sort of live experience of journalism, where you maybe meet the reporter who's responsible for covering your area, and you can ask them questions. And so, yeah, that's something we do. And please take a photo of this QR code, because we at the Bonn Institute also do this at the Be Future Festival. On the one hand, that's held in October, an international journalism conference, where we talk about how to make journalism better for people. But we also have an event for the users, for the people who consume our journalistic content. And what's important about that is that people who create journalistic products, that they, experience how valuable it can be to leave your own point of view, to meet people, to talk to people, and to have the time to actually talk to them, listen to them, the time that you often lack in your day-to-day job. But Ellen, that doesn't scale. Doesn't scale at all. Yeah, I've heard that quite often when I talk about these topics. And yeah, that's true. And I think it's wrong to think that everything has to scale, right? Not everything has to scale. That's just a way of thinking that we took from, the big tech companies. And as we know from other talks at Republica, not everything that comes out of big tech is actually good, right? And so I think journalism has the chance to be independent of these questions of scale, right? Because it's about trust. And it's easy to lose trust, but to build up trust, it takes quite a long time, and it doesn't scale. And so I think I'm very certain that the people who put in the effort to get in touch with people, who understand people's needs, and who don't just complain, but who actually bring people together, those are the ones that will survive. And so I think journalists have the option to, become the sort of stuff that binds society together, that, prevents polarization. And so, this extinction event way back when, lots and lots of animals didn't survive, and a few did. And it might be the case that it happens again when it comes to journalism. But, how does the saying go? Use the crisis that you're facing. It's the best moment to, get started. And that's, something I wish for journalism, because we need it so much in these times right now. Thank you very much.